Hello, I'm Crystal Hartfield, and this is my final project on the relational database model. I'm going to explain the relational database model and demonstrate how it can help identify different types of animation and how their different techniques overlap by creating tables and linking them to connect every creative element from a 2D drawing to a 3D rig. Let me start by explaining what a database is. A database is a computer system used to organize and store data. A relational database stores data in tables and links those tables and enforces rules on the structure of the table so that the data is efficient to manage, easy to query, and easy to retrieve data. Think of this like a set of spreadsheets. Each table in a relational database is like a spreadsheet. Each row is a single item or a record, like one customer, one order, one product. Each column is a piece of information about the item, such as a customer's name, an order, a date, or a product price. A little information about animation. Animation is the art of making an inanimate object appear to move. Animation has been around since the 1600s, but we consider modern animation to have started somewhere around the 1800s. Animation usually consists of 24 drawings per second. That's almost 1,500 drawings per minute. Animators may use more or fewer drawings depending on how smooth they want their animation to be. Although there are several different types of animation, I'm going to focus on 2D, 3D, and stop motion. Now that you have an understanding of the basics of animation and what a relational database model is, we can start building our database. And within it, there are tables that correspond to specific data. I'll begin by creating our first two tables. The first table is our animation table. It has the following columns: animation ID and the animation name. The next table I'm going to create is our technique types. It has the following columns: tech ID and the technique name. Please remember when you're creating tables that you're using a specific and consistent naming standard. It is important to note that the anim ID and the tech ID columns are referred to as our primary key. Our primary key is a unique identifier. They usually are assigned of a specific number to identify the row. Since typical nouns can be common and repetitive, this keeps our database from pulling conflicting information. 2D animation is one of our oldest forms of animation, beginning somewhere around the 1890s. Originally, animators had to hand draw each drawing, then take a picture of it to form the animation. Nowadays, it's all done on computers. In our table, we have our unique identifier, which is 1001 for our animation type 2D, and its technique will be known as hand drawn. Next, we will be expanding our table by including 3D animation. Our unique identifier for 3D is, our animation table is 1002, and on our techniques type, we will have our unique identifier as P2 for computer. Although 2D animation has now is now created on computers, you're still hand drawing everything. While as in 3D, we are manipulating physical 3D models. Inside each model, you have somewhat of a skeleton that you control them by their controllers that help you manipulate the character into position. 3D is also known as CGI, and it has pretty much, for the most part, kind of replaced hand-drawn animation because it's more cost efficient. Next, we have stop motion. We'll be adding that to our table. Our unique identifier is 1003 on the animation table, and on the techniques table is P3, and it's a picture. Similar to 2D, when it comes to stop motion, you will have to move the character's armature into position, then take a picture of it to create the animation. Now that our tables have been built, I'm going to display the relationship between these tables with the help of a linking table, showing that they have a many-to-many relationship. A many-to-many relationship is created between two columns where neither of them have a unique constraint applied. I have a database with one table to store information about animation and another one to store information about techniques. I want to allow each animation type to be able to use multiple techniques and vice versa. To create the relationship, we would need a non-unique column in each table. If I ever wanted to expand a table with either more techniques or animation in their subtext, in order to join this information, we need to create a linking table that will serve as a bridge. This allows us to make two one-to-many relationships that will join several rows from the animation table to several rows in the technique table. You will often be able to identify these kind of tables by their name. A common naming approach is a combination of the two tables. And for instance, in this case, anim techniques. This is where our two columns with unique constraints will go. If we take a look at how the arrangement works with our data, you can follow the threads from the animation table to the linking table to the techniques types. This allows you to see that hand-drawn animation can be used in 2D animation, 2D animation as well as 3D animation, and computers can be used in 2D animation and 3D animation. To give you another many-to-many relationship and also help you be able to identify animation a little bit better, here's another table that consists of movies and shows, and we're going to link this with our techniques table. As you can see, Snow White has this technique of hand drawn, while something like Klaus is also hand drawn, but is also using the computer technique. The reason why some animated movies and shows would use multiple types of techniques is to give them a stylized look. For instance, with Klaus, this may look like 3D, but it's actually 2D animation using 3D effects to give it a three-dimensional look. With Archer, this is a 2D show, but using a 3D process like the rig, so you don't have to physically draw every movement. You can just move bits and pieces into position. In Paranorman, this is stop motion, but is using 3D effects to make the grandma look like she's a ghost. And in The Wild Robot, this is 3D animation using 2D textures to give it a more stylized look. I hope you enjoyed my presentation and you learned something new about the relational database model, as well as being able to now identify different types of animation and their technique types. Thank you for your time.